Tema Talks is brought to you by the Guenter Memorial Trust, which is Canada's leading provider of peer support, family assistance, education and training for emergency services, public safety, military personnel, and their families. Check out tema.ca for more information. The views, opinions, and endorsements expressed in each podcast episode are those of the host and the guest alone, and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Tema Guenter Memorial Trust. The subject matter of this podcast may be triggering for some listeners. Please take the time to get yourself in a calm and positive mind space before listening so you can get the most out of the podcast. Okay, cue the music and enjoy this episode of Tema Talks.
Hello, people, and welcome back to Tema Talks, episode 18, which is also the second of two Tema Talks Summer of Support episodes. As I record this, it's just days after the tragic events in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So, of course, I want to acknowledge that and just say that our thoughts and support go out to everyone involved, the families and loved ones of the 4 people that were killed, including 2 police officers, the community who is trying to deal with this, and obviously the first responders who are now dealing with the aftermath and may be struggling. And if you are, please reach out. There is lots of support, lots of organizations that are keeping an eye on this and are just waiting to hear the word. So please do that. Truly a sad and horrific event. All right, guys, I'm going to introduce something new to the podcast. It's going to be a game. We've all heard of the drinking game, the various drinking games that go on. Well, we're not going to do that, obviously. But what we're going to do is a gratitude game. And this is inspired by, apparently, I mentioned Teresa Coulter on almost every episode. She's turned into a really close friend of mine and friend of the podcast. I've said before, she's like a spiritual guide for the podcast. Love her to death, and I talk to her all the time and frequently mention her on the podcast. So here's what we're going to do. If you're listening to the podcast and I mention any other advocate or organization other than the guest that I'm talking to, so when I bring up Teresa, or if I bring up some other organization or a past guest that I've had on, I want you to pause the podcast, and I want you to say out loud 3 things that you're grateful for. And then I want you to press play and continue. So it's going to be the Tema Talks gratitude game. That's what we're going to do. So I hope that you participate, as I've learned that just doing that really creates a different mindset. And can really pull you out of some negativity. So that's what we're going to do from now on. All right. My guest this episode is Chad Guenter. He's a firefighter out of Alberta and also the founder of Keep Calm and Paddle On. This was an awesome chat. Really great dude, doing awesome work. Really passionate about this subject, as you're going to find out. I really love this talk. I hope you do too. Let's get to it.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to the podcast, Chad. It's a pleasure to have you on tonight.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I got introduced to you briefly through Teresa Coulter, and basically Teresa told me that you have to be my next guest. So I have to do what she says, and she wanted me to tell you that she's a big fan and loves what you're doing. So that's what brings us to here. I'm happy to have you.
Oh, that's amazing. It's it's really good to hear how we're actually connecting. We're actually getting to people, and Teresa and I haven't even formally met face to face. We've talked on the phone, we've talked to email messages, all those sorts of platforms, and that's it makes me feel really good. What we're doing is connecting.
Oh, the community is getting much larger, and and Alberta's dominating. Alberta's dominated my podcast for the recent history. So it's been great. You guys are doing great work out here in the West, and just keep it up.
That's great to hear.
So Chad, for me, who's getting to know you, and for our listeners who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you grew up, where you grew up, and what got you want to be a firefighter.
I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, so in the middle of the prairies, nice and flat. And growing up as a kid, you play a lot. You do anything to keep you occupied. There's not mountains to ski. There's not a lot of rivers to paddle and all those sorts of things. So you stay busy with sports. So I was an active kid that way. And to be honest, when I got to that high school part, I couldn't wait to leave. I couldn't wait to leave that place and and explore other parts. And I bet a few people might understand that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so you get out of high school, and then what is it you want to do?
In high school, well, like I said, grow up playing sports. I was in high school playing volleyball. I was playing basketball, track, all that sort of stuff. And I didn't know any different. Like sports was it. That's all I knew. And that's what kept me going to school. I wasn't the greatest learner. Was there to play the sports. And when I was leaving, I was like, I gotta catch on to a university or college or something and keep going with this sports thing, because I can't see my drive academic wise to keep me going. So that was the plan. That was the goal.
And so is that what happened for you? Did you go to university through that?
I ended up going to, a fantastic college called Grand Prairie Regional College.
Okay.
And went there to play volleyball. And I was given the opportunity to think about playing for the University of Saskatchewan Huskies for the basketball team. And I, of course, growing up there and, going to the Husky games and seeing the crowds and, being a kid, right? Those were massive crowds.
Right.
And that was something that I really wanted. And when that time came, I chose a sport that I didn't even see coming, because I also played, baseball and I thought I was going to do something with that, but there's not a lot of universities in our country that have that as a program. So I chose volleyball and went in as a Bachelor of Education student, and we went to nationals 3 years in a row. We medaled 3 of those years, and it was an amazing experience.
Nice. So you get done with university, and then what happens next? What makes you want to get involved with firefighting? Did that happen right away, or did that take some time?
It didn't, but it was always kind of in the back. It was always something that I was thinking about, but this was my path right now, and that's what I was following. And you're leaving school with some debt and some, I was uncertain about being so young and teaching younger people. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I got the chops yet for this. And ended up following some trade routes. So, being an iron worker, being a arborist. And I started, I couldn't really, I was off my path at that time, and I started jumping from jobs and trying to pay down that looming student loan. And, I really got off track after university, and sports started to slow down. And I think that was part of it. I had a big disconnect, with what I knew, which was what was me. Like if that was me since I was 5 years old, playing sports, and then it changed. And for me, that was a big change of path for sure.
Yeah, it would have been, probably, a period of just trying to figure out where you go to next.
I think a lot of people have that, right? And
absolutely,
I don't think it stops.
No.
Like you may be on your path, what you think is your path, and then, people change careers a lot. And, I think a lot of people struggle with finding that path, even staying on it. And, although at the time it felt like I was like, oh man, this is only me. everyone's sorted, everyone's doing their thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I definitely felt a bit lost at that point.
So how'd you get found? What happened?
I was on the road for about two years in hotels doing ironwork. I loved a lot of facets of that job. We built some amazing projects, big projects. And, I was walking steel 100 feet up, and there's...
Oh, you're one of those people.
You kind of get that rush of,
That makes me sick when I see that.
But there's a little bit of, a little bit of that excitement that you get playing sports. And, I was like, oh man, this is high. This is fun. This is, scary and unique all at the same time. But, it got to be too much being on the road and, in and out of relationships with people that, friends and girlfriends, and, not understanding why I'm gone so much and why I choose to stay gone. And, life was just kind of, off track, like I mentioned. So I was sitting in a hotel in Miami, of all places, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to do something that is for me. Right now, I've been doing just really for the paycheck. I'm cruising the internet as you do, and I'm like, what do I like? What's going on? Like, I had no free time at that point. I was just work. And, I came across this program out east, in the Ottawa Valley, to be a raft guide, river guide, like kayak, canoe, raft. And, I was like, it was a 3-month program, and you get a bunch of certifications and a lot of experience. And, you're on a bunch of different rivers, and you're traveling through Canada, the US and Mexico, all these different rivers. And it sounded like an amazing adventure. And I knew that was something I wanted. It was something that really interested me, not just the travel, but what we'd be doing. And it also scared me a bit. And I think I just needed that challenge, but in a different athletic kind of way. Right. And, I don't think I thought about it that long, and I signed up. It was expensive, but, I was making the money at the time, and I was able to do it, and signed up. And the next thing I know, I'm given my 2 weeks, and I'm getting ready for my next 3 months and my different path. And that really started to push me where I am today. I'm very much, in the rescue industry, not just with my fire work that I do, but I also teach technical rescue on many different levels. So that moment was really defining for me. I didn't really think of that at that time, but looking back, it's definitely what put me where I am right now.
So you go and you take this course, and that gives you all these certifications to do that part.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you get into firefighting, become a firefighter?
So, with this training and the experience that I got, I started working in that field of running rivers and taking people down the rivers, and which led me to Canmore, where I live today.
Okay.
And I was struggling to make it work in this town. It's an expensive place to live. If you've ever been here or know about it,
no.
It's a small little mountain town at the foothills of the Rockies, and it's an expensive place. It's like a Vail. It's like Aspen. It's an expensive ski town. And as a lonely river guide, it's hard to it's hard to make ends meet. And I was like, man, I felt like I was doing what I needed to do, and I just can't cut it. So I kept going back home to Saskatoon for the winters after spending summers on the river, and I ran into a dear friend of mine, Kelly Stanley, and he's like, you know what? In my hometown, they're offering, firefighting training. And I think there's some spots available. He was in paramedic school at the time, and we're going to come back to him. He was okay. He's somebody that we should definitely bring up at another point here, but I looked into it, and it was another one of those things. I was like, I'll sign up. I'll see what happens, because with entry into a lot of these fire programs, they're wait lists and all that. And I was like, well, we'll see. I ended up getting in, and that was in 2009. 2009, yeah. And I did the program, and they kind of put you through it all, and I felt like I was ready to tackle everything, and that's when all the entrance exams and the aptitude tests and all those sorts of things happen, and you're like, oh, well, this is tougher than I thought it would be. But that's kind of where it got started for me there.
Nice. So then did you get a job right out of school, basically?
Well, I did, but not in the fire industry. It was in the rescue industry. So I started working in as an emergency response technician on an oil and gas plant, as a high angle rescue and confined space rescue type of person. Right. And coming out of school, paying all that money for school, it was a good opportunity. And in the meantime, I was taking the tests for the different departments. Okay. And this was a great jumping off point for me to get some experience, get some more training, which they like to see on the resume. And it was a really beneficial time for me to be with that company and kind of springboard off of that. And, applied. I didn't care really where I was. I just wanted to get in. I knew that was what I needed to do. Right. And finally, after some years with that company, I felt like tackling Canmore again. I felt like going back there and really, giving it everything I could and try and make it work this time. And lo and behold, after a few applications to the Canmore Fire Hall, I got on, and I started in the recruit class, and that was amazing as a paid on call firefighter. And now I'm sitting as a casual union member for the fire hall, so covering shifts for the full-time folks that need time off, and I'm happy when they take time off, because I like to get on the floor, and it's that's where I'm at, and it's amazing. So
what year would that have been that you got on with them?
That would have been, we're getting close to year 5 now, so just what would that be? 2000. Yeah, just after the flood. So the flood, we had a big flood here in Canmore, Calgary, High River area in 2013, and it was just after that.
Cool. So you've been doing this for quite a while now, this whole rescue / firefighting thing.
Yeah.
And now, linking to what we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes, how did you find it as far as, did you know right away that you had to take care of yourself well, as far as not just physically but emotionally? Did you find any obstacles there as you were progressing through your career?
You kind of always know that there's something, right? There's going to be something that happens. There's going to be an event. There's going to be a call. Right. But there was more good things about it that was really not on the forefront of what I thought I needed to prepare myself for. Right. And I think that might be what a lot of people are thinking. Sometimes these events kind of blindside you, because you're there to help for sure, but we always feel like, well, we're doing this because we feel like we can handle it. But the truth of the matter is that we're all we're all human. We all got this part of us that's gonna break at some points, some earlier and some later than others. So, kind of the long answer to that is no, I wasn't really, aware or preparing myself for what I was about to get into on the mental side of things, physically and educationally. I felt like I had a lot of good backing there and was able to, I was able to bring it all. And there's definitely those calls that are making you question what you do sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So then how long When did you come up with this idea for Keep Calm, Paddle On?
Well, it's always been in my life. So my family struggles with their mental health, and my brother was diagnosed with bipolar when he was quite young, teenager. And, that there's always something going on, and we never had that cohesive family feel that I think that a lot of people want, right? A lot of people are wanting in a family, and it was always disruptive and troublesome and hard I moved a lot in my job and in the different jobs I had previous to this. And I think a lot of that was me trying to, I always wonder if it was me running away, but I think a lot of it was me trying to save myself from feeling it too much. And I know that sounds bad on the surface because, like, how can you desert family and all that?
That's
sort of
real,
stuff.
though. They're real feelings.
It is. And that's that brain game you play with yourself about, should I've done this and why didn't I do that? But, I feel like a large part of my path was, kind of moving and getting to different places because I could kind of redefine me and I could leave that stuff behind. And I think that I imagine we're going to talk about some stigma pretty soon. And that was, you kind of leave that behind and try and reinvent or redefine yourself without people knowing about what's going on in your life. And right. We're going to have to blame stigma for a large part of that. And, so basically, with what my brother was going through and to kind of put it into perspective, my brother had a bike, he was mountain biking and he hit his head. He was wearing a helmet. And he hit his head and he had a brain injury. And it wasn't in the scale of things. It wasn't a very bad one, but you ring your bell and it's going to do some things inside. And, and as a teenager, you act one way and we feel that that's because you're a teenager and, a bonk on the head can kind of magnify those moods and movements, right? So not understanding that, I think from a doctor's perspective, they started to medicate him and this medication slowly started to chew away at spots that were working fine and kind of electrifying those areas and making them work a little bit harder. And the spots that needed help weren't getting the help. So now his brain injury is starting to be pushed into a more feverish spot of, severely bipolar and what a hard life, and I always, to this day, he struggles with finding a job and feeling self-worth in society. And I get that. I understand what that's like. So at some point, Sean, I was just like, man, I gotta do something. I don't know what to do. I don't have a lot of money. I don't know how to help. Here's a phone number, call that. Sure. That gets you someplace, but I just felt like there was more I could do, and I really had no clue. So knowing why I needed to do this, now how did I come up with it? The river part, right? So back to the river, doing all these courses and trips and adventures on the river. That's where I felt the most alive and connected. Taking people down the river, anything that bothered me that morning would stop. I'd forget about it all because, these people's safety was first and foremost. So it was very easy to just shut that off and be in a world that I loved. And, back in 2011, I bought a stand-up paddleboard when you could say it was still fairly quiet about what that sport was at that time. And, really what I wanted was that connection back to the water. And so I bought this and, very soon after, in fact, that same day, I immediately felt guilty for this massive purchase, because, my mom was about to claim bankruptcy.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, I just spent this money and she really needs it. But this was this package, this board that I just bought was basically my medication. If you want to call it that, it was
Absolutely,
really,
for sure.
it was really what made me feel me. And I went and, sat at a coffee shop after talking to my mom, and it's like, how in the hell am I going to make this work? Like, I feel guilty for this. I was like, all these thoughts and emotions. And I was like, I need to make this paddleboard do, I need it to make the money that I just spent. So I designed and schemed up this trip that I was like, people can't help but see what I'm doing. Like, there's going to be no ignoring this. So I paddled 300 kilometers down the river and through one of a very big and windy lake, Lake Diefenbaker, into the South Sask, and 300 kilometers solo with my stuff on the board. And I was like, people can't ignore this. And I started using social media as a platform to talk about what I was doing. And even at that time, looking back at some of those posts I was making, I was like, I was touching on the subject, but I was still scared at that time to talk about it. And here I am trying to be kind of the spokesperson for this event, and I'm having a tough time talking about it because of this whole stigma. I'm scared of opening too much up about my family and what we're going through, because I don't want them to be hurt by, what people might think. And that was a tough emotional, 5 days to, big wins and a new sport, which was excellent for, what kind of proving grounds that was for me and what I could accomplish. But, I think I saw some connection with some people at the end of it all when I got to the end, and people were like, I struggle too. Another person, I've struggled too. My parents or my friends, or, it was so surprising at how many people would start opening up. And
well, as soon as it feels safe, they come out of the woodwork. We all come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
As soon as we feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this trip or that particular event really started to allow for that to happen. And I was like, I need this to happen more. How can I make this happen more? So we've turned this into an annual event. We've now gone into the Cayman Islands with our events. Wow. I'll get into why we're over there in a minute, but we do clinics, we do races under the KCPO or Keep Calm Paddle On, umbrella, and really now we've invited more people to do the trip with us, not just me solo. At the time I was like, look out, folks, you're gonna you can't help but ignore this. But now we have to share this with people, and this trip has allowed for people to be pushed outside their comfort zones to really see what, that they can get past these little hurdles that, there's so many metaphors with mental health in this trip. It's, that's kind of,
it's really important, I think, that what you just said there be outside your comfort zone, because I know for me, when I got sick, I felt like I really wasn't useful for anything, couldn't do anything, even just easy, mundane tasks, and I definitely was comfortable being comfortable, even if it was like, even if it was a bad place, even if it was depressing, I was comfortable being that. Mm-hmm. But you don't grow. You don't grow if you're comfortable.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's, and this trip is something that gets people in that spot of, as safe as we can make it, that spot of uncomfortability. And I love seeing the growth. I love seeing the conversations that come out of it, and the tears that happen with it, and the holy, like, I can't believe that I did that. And to be able to provide that for people is really amazing.
It looks awesome. It looks fun. I've never done it, but it looks really fun. I love the water. I mean, I grew up by the ocean in Nova Scotia. Obviously, got ocean all around me, and I love the water, and I feel probably most relaxed when I'm around the water. So I think it would be amazing. I think it would probably help tons of people.
I think you got to look at what's going on out there for, for some of the ex-military groups that are getting people out there surfing, and the absolute life-changing moments that they're having on the water. I mean, there's something there, and it's pretty amazing. That's for sure. So
when did you? Obviously, your first outing was solo. Your big solo 300K tour. But so when did you do your first event that included other people?
The next year. So next year, same time. So that would have been 2013, and I was unsure of really how that looked. Like you said, you know what your comfortability level was, and I knew that it was good for me, but was it good for others? So I invited two very close friends of mine, one from the Cayman Islands. Actually, I didn't invite him. I told him what I was doing, and he's like, "I'll be there, man. I will be there."
Cool.
And he's been there every year since. And again, we're growing bigger over there, in a different, aspect. And then another friend of mine, who lives in Saskatoon, and, so it was the three of us, and we did the trip, and there was we did a shortened version of it. So it's 150 kilometers now, and that's what's open to the group since. And it's much more manageable, but it still gives you that realm of uncomfortable, long day paddling. The winds can be there. And so that all that stuff is still there, but just in an abbreviated, version. And there's lots of conversations of, what if we open this up to more people? Do you guys think this would take, like, do you think we could get some traction with it? And the fellows were like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll help you. And I have a really tough time asking for help. And because I find in the fire service, it's not that they don't want you to ask for help, but we should also be problem solvers too. And, if you, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And, so I've always had that tough time asking for help, and I still do, but, I think some of my friends just understand. It's like, okay, Chad, I'm going to do this. Let me do this for you. And I was like, okay, good. I didn't have to ask you, but, they're like, yeah, we'll help you. And it's just been growing every year. At one point on the last day, some people can meet up with us, and we had close to 100 people. I think we had 93 people on the water.
Wow.
And to see, and that's almost all stand-up paddleboards. There's some canoes in there, kayak or two, but I'm talking 80 some stand-up paddleboards, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah. And now, is this, like, these events, is it a fun? I'm just trying to learn more about what it's about. So is there a fundraising aspect to it, or is it a? Go ahead.
Yeah, we have both, and sorry to cut you off there, but
no, you go ahead.
I gotta be honest. I get excited talking about this stuff, and
no, it's wicked. Yeah,
it's both, and it's first and foremost been about awareness, and the funds have come in as an added bonus. I mean, I do ask for them. There is a donation button on the website, but it's really, for me, it's been about the awareness part, because it's tough. It's a tough thing to talk about. Mental health and mental illness. It's a real tough thing to talk about. So I really wanted to be able to build a space or a journey or a trip that people felt like that was it. That was safe. It was okay to talk about that stuff. So, in my posts during the trip on Instagram and Facebook and the conversations that I have face to face with the other paddlers, it's, trying to let everyone know that, you're not alone. You've got a group here, and it's okay to ask for help. So it's always first and foremost been about the awareness, and funds do come in, and that's been great. And we've been able to help a lot of people with the funds that come in. But I think that awareness part, I think a lot of campaigns are like, money driven. And I agree that that part is so important, but there's that non-monetary space of face to face that I think is so important as well.
Well, it seems like you sort of got like a dual thing going on here. You have obviously a huge opportunity for there to be, whether people who participate get sponsors or raise funds that way, but also the event itself for the people there is therapeutic. It's almost like a therapy program, getting back to nature, back with the water, just sort of re-engaging.
Yeah, and I think, isn't it so easy to lose this nowadays? Like, I'm as guilty to be on the phone too much, right? And that connection with nature, which, being outside and playing sports and going to the lake and all those things we did, or I did as a kid, like, I lost that along the way. And it's important. That water, nature, physical connection is really important.
Yeah, for sure it is. So you told me you wanted to talk about this. So obviously you had your friend come up and for the event, and you went down there, did you, to the Cayman Islands for an event?
Yeah, so I'd gone down to reconnect with him, and it was shortly after the trip, and we just started talking, and we were always friends, but just lost that contact over the years, and with a message here and there, and he's just like, what's going on in your life? And I told him about this trip because it was still fresh, and I mean, we probably hadn't seen each other for 10 years. And I don't think I was done my last sentence before he said, if you do this again next year, I will be there. And lo and behold, there he is. And so he comes down from the Caymans every year to help, to support. And since, he has now gone and taken the KCPO, community and started to build it there. And we help foster kids and special needs kids down on the island. And we raise money through race events, through stand-up paddleboard clinics, through kind of your everyday type of fundraisers that you might have, bingo nights and lip sync competitions and those sorts of fun things. But we always try and keep that water and that nature connection somehow. And you know what, like taking some of those foster kids and special needs kids out on the boards on the ocean is something that they just may not get to experience unless there's groups willing to do it. And again, raising money for these causes is great, but there's that human nature connection that we got to keep going if we can.
Yeah, and it seems like you're on the right path. Obviously, you guys you haven't been doing it very long, and it seems like you're obviously getting noticed, and it's your mission or this project is definitely growing. What's your vision for it? What are in 5 years from now, where do you want to see it, or what do you want it to be doing?
That's a great question. I trust me when I say that is something I think about a lot, and I'm not sure I have the best answer, but I guess the best way I can see this grow is I would love to have a lodge of some sort that's on a lake, that's on a river, that's on an ocean. It doesn't really matter, but I want water close by. And I want this to be a place where I have certified professionals that are there, and they are themselves a river guide, an ocean guide, a paddle guide of some sort. And I want a place where people can come for little to no money, and they can shut off for a week. They can learn something. They can experience something, and get help too if they need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say, because that would be perfect. Like to have a complex, sort of a whole sort of healing sort of center next to the water, doing what you're doing now. They're starting to pop up across the country.
Yes.
And, I think it's a hard go, I think, at first for them, but I think they're starting to take hold. and they're being seen as very important sort of places of refuge for people to just, like you said, just to shut off and to try to reboot and, just sort of take stock and just, try to come out, try to learn some new skills and, like you said, grow through being uncomfortable and come out looking, thinking of themselves as successful and useful and, a new direction that they can go in. It's very important.
I think it's, this mental illness in itself is such a fickle beast. Like I don't, and I can't speak of other, illnesses because I haven't had them, right? I consider myself now very healthy and in a good place, but people that maybe experience a different illness may not have, they might still feel quite useful and like very accomplished.
Right.
But we have this mental illness, and it could be one of the monsters, right? There's so many of them, but that struggle to find that worth can be debilitating. And if we could just have a way to, hey, come here, we will teach you how to be, a swiftwater rescue technician. We will teach you how to guide folks down the river. And, maybe it's just really, I think when you can give people that tool, to grow that way, I think it's so important.
It's priceless. It means everything. It's a lifesaver. It literally can save a life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you got going on the go coming up here? Tell me what some events you have coming up.
Well, August 24th, 25th, and 26th is our annual, our kind of our flagship trip. So this is our 7th year. It is a 3-day trip that spans about 140 to 150 kilometers. It kind of depends on water level. So if the water's low, we tend to travel a bit longer. But it is on the South Saskatchewan River. And the exact section that we do has been recently named the only river section part of the Trans-Canada Trail. Like, that is, it is really cool to be on a protected, beautiful spot of water. And you know what? It was in my backyard the whole time, and I never explored it. I wanted to get out of that city so bad and so fast. And now I look forward to this trip for many reasons, but that body of water is for many reasons just an amazing place to be. So that trip is going to see 22 people on it this year for the full 3-day trip. And we carry all of our gear, our tents, our sleeping bags, our food, our stoves. We filter water. We are self-sufficient for those 3 days.
Now, is there still room on this trip, or is it full?
It is full. It filled up in 12 hours. So it is.
Let's pretend it wasn't full for a second.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to do this, like I said, you know what, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't have this gear. Like, I don't have this self-sustaining gear.
Right.
Do people get help with that, or do they have to have all their own gear?
Absolutely. No, we can help with that. We have our registration up on our website, which I can give you in a minute here, but, well, absolutely. We had a girl fly in from England to do the trip. And, so we found her aboard. So one of the fellas that did year 2 with me, Marcus Story, he owns a paddle shop in Saskatoon. So they've been major contributors and helpers to make this movement go where it's been. And, through that shop, we're able to supply the paddlers that need it. Paddleboards, paddles, PFDs, all the sorts of good things. And they're always giving us deals on the gear that we need for the trip, and, massive support from them. But we have other avenues as well. So that part is usually not an issue for folks that don't have the kit.
Cool, because that's what I was thinking. Like, for myself, I guess I'm thinking of myself. I just don't. Through my years of being a paramedic, I never really, even though I love camping and love hiking, I never really got into it enough to have my own gear.
Right.
So, but I'd love to do this kind of thing, but I just wouldn't have any stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point, because you might think, well, this is just paddling, so I don't have any of that stuff, and I'm not into it. We've taken paddlers that have had, I'll call it zero experience, but maybe have been on a board for an hour, and we've been able to safely take them down this stretch of water. And, seeing that person go from, holy cow, I'm really diving into this, at the end, to being comfortable singing, whistling down the river. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to get out there because I think I would love it. So we'll have to hook up. But,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So how can people help? How can people, you mentioned the site, how can people look into these kind of stuff, look into the stuff that you're doing?
So we have a website, and it is kcpo.ca. And there is spots there to check out what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, and kind of the stuff that we're getting up to. There's a donation button on there as well. Really, our trip, or this trip that we do, brings about our most fundraising, because we often do a lot of hats and T-shirts and fun stuff like that, and that's my way of asking for money. I would rather sell you something that you would like and wear, and that thing is going to generate some more conversation, right? So someone's going to see that T-shirt or hat, and they're going to be like, "Hey, what is that?" And to me, that's really important. And of course, donations are awesome to have without that, but it's that conversation generation that we need to do, right? We need to get these stories and these what we're doing out there. So the website is a great place to find out what we're doing. We are also on Facebook at Keep Calm and Paddle On. And my personal Instagram, because I don't want to have so many that I can't keep track of them all. So I do all the live posts and things like that from the river during the trip on that Instagram platform.
Perfect. So, people donate. You hear that. Obviously, you find ways to help people with the money, but most of the money goes to help fund the program. I'm guessing, right?
Well, it actually doesn't. So we are very lucky in the way that when we get donations. So if I sell a hat for $30, 15 of that is going to go back to making another hat, and the other 15 is going to go into the funds. And then if there's donations on top of that, they all go into this space. And then what we do with that money, and it's never hard to find folks, as I'm sure you know, to help. But what we do is we'll help them pay the mortgage that month. We will help them buy groceries. We'll set up an account for their therapy, whatever that is, counseling, psychiatrist, psychologist. We've been able to get someone's brain mapped. So we were able to pay for them to go to Edmonton and have that done, and to find out what's firing, what's not firing, and to more closely pinpoint what's actually going on with this individual. We've been able to buy kids clothes for school because their mom had been in the psych ward for 3 months. So, we don't, we have a lot of freedom with what we do with this money, and it's never hard to find somebody to help, but it goes to what it needs to go to, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of need out there, but you're right. There's also a lot of resources that can help, and there's money out there to get. It's just a matter of putting yourself out there and proving that you have a good foundation and a good mission and a good program, which you obviously have an amazing one. You mentioned your website, and I think you mentioned Facebook. You're also on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
It's my name, so at Chad Guenter, Guenter.
Wicked. And what about Twitter? You tweet at all or what?
I don't. I've been trying to slim down all this stuff because it's so hard to put good stuff out there, and then I got to do it 2 or 3 more times. So we do the Facebook, the website, and then the Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. That's excellent. So before I let you go, Chad, I'm going to ask you this question. I ask everybody the same question. So if someone is listening right now who could be struggling on any level, or maybe they have a loved one who's struggling, could be anything, if they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
It's hard not to get choked up, right?
Yeah.
Just that there's people out there that understand. We get it. you said at the beginning, there's it's kind of no holds barred. You can say what you like, but I bet you didn't think it was going to come across in some tears. But it's
no, it's real. This is a human problem. It's an epidemic that's hurting a lot of people.
It's tough, but yeah, we try to. Oh, I'm just going to take a minute here, Sean.
Take as much time as you want.
Whew. We have always strived to make sure that people know that we get it. We get it. We understand. And I think, oh man, I think we just have to let those people know that, you can't give up. There's someone out there that is struggling just like you. And there's help. For sure there's help.
There is lots of help.
It's hard to ask for, like I said. But if you can find the strength and you can find the courage to help, it's out there, I promise.
Well said, brother. It's I can tell this means something to you. There's obviously a strong family connection for this, topic for you. On that, how is your brother?
He is in that constant state of flux where, you're doing good. One day you're doing not so good the next day, and then you get a whole month of good, and then you might get a whole month of bad. But you know what? That guy's a warrior, and
have you had him on the water?
I have.
Good.
He's actually a big paddler now, and it's awesome
Sweet.
to see. Yeah, it's really awesome to see.
Well, Chad, he is, whether you know this already or he knows it, he is certainly blessed to have you as a brother, to have you doing this kind of work, not only for him, but for all of us. And, brother, you're amazing. I love the work that you're doing, and we're going to keep tabs. And if you have anything else going on or want to come on and talk about anything, just let me know. You have my number, I have your number, and I would love to get out and actually get on the water. That would be entertaining, I'm sure, for everybody. But I'd love to do it. And but I'll definitely stay in touch. And just thank you very much for coming on and telling your story and telling us about your work. It's amazing.
I appreciate it, man. Like it is just, we don't talk story enough anymore, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I do.
It's my pleasure, brother. Listen, take care of you and yourself, and keep this going. Keep it going forward. Make it bigger. I'll be here watching it every step of the way, but just take care of yourself.
I'll do that, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
Man, that guy is doing some great work. It was a pleasure to meet him and learn about him. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, as with our last Summer of Support episode, now you're going to hear 12 messages of support from past guests. It's been, as I said, it's been a hard few months. A lot of people are struggling. We've lost a lot of people to suicide. I just wanted to put out these messages of support to further confirm for anybody listening that we are definitely not alone. We are a big community of supporters, and there is always somebody who is ready to listen if you're ready to speak. All right, so here's where you're going to hear from. Another A-list. Marie-Julie Cosenzo, Peter Tripp, my brother Hal Hughes from Project Trauma Support, Jessica Vanderhook, Rob Mitchell, also from Project Trauma Support, Alan Kobayashi from Light On PTSD, Manuela Joannou, Scott Maxwell from Wounded Warriors, Wendy Lund, the awesome Callie Power from Callie's Corner, Chris Fields, Oklahoma City firefighter, now retired, and last but not least, Todd Doherty, who has been fundamental on a federal level, an advocate for mental health support for first responders, and really developed and helped push through Bill C-211. All right, so have a listen. Messages of support, just for you. Before we wrap things up here, I always ask my guests this. So if you could say something to a listener who's going through, a mental health issue, whether it be PTSD or otherwise, or may find themselves, in that dark place that we've all been, trying to survive our days, what would you say to that person?
I would say you don't have to suffer alone. I guarantee you there's somebody out there who understands what you're going through. Reach out. Everybody's way of getting help is different. There's online groups. There's employee assistance programs. I mean, you've got to get help. Don't punish yourself by isolating yourself. No. And you won't find happiness at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to drown it out, and it just makes it worse.
Absolutely.
And be open to the help that is being offered, meaning I didn't want to take antidepressants. I didn't want to take medication to sleep, but it's stuff that's helped me manage my symptoms so that I can work on other things. If I sleep, I guarantee you my day will be better than if I slept in 1 hour increments.
Yeah.
So oh God, get help, please, please, please. People can personal message me if they want a hand finding resources. I mean,
okay.
I was lucky to have people help me, and I'm at a place now where I can help people better.
No, that's very well said. One of my favorite things someone said to me during these podcasts is, he said to me, you have to pick up that 1,000-pound phone, which totally made sense to me, that it's like the hardest thing to do, but you have to do it.
And I know that as helpers, we hate asking for help.
Absolutely, yes.
But I'm full of cliches today.
Yeah.
I found a really nice picture, and it's been on my Facebook for about a year. And it says, "You can't pour from an empty cup." You have
as simple as that.
You have to take care of yourself first, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
No, very true. Peter, if there's someone listening to this right now that's struggling, what would you say to them?
First of all, I'd say get a hold of me on Facebook. Email me. I would give you my cell phone number. You know it, Sean.
Yeah.
And I would give it to somebody. The biggest thing is, everybody always says you're not alone. There's resources out there. Mm-hmm. That's all fine and good, but you have to be real with these people. I know you're hurting. One of the main things is to not solve their problem. Listen to them. Let them voice it. Yeah. Let them talk. Hear them. And I don't mean hear them in a sense like, wah. Hear them.
Yeah.
Give them some feedback when they need it. Don't tell them what they should hear. Don't tell them what they want to hear. Tell them what they should hear. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm here. I am accessible 24/7. If I'm not, it's because I'm in the air. Cell phones don't get me in the air.
If there's anybody listening right now that is struggling, and I know you know what that struggle feels like, I know what that struggle feels like, what would your message be to them?
Well, you want to use the word struggles, and I'll just tie it into one of the other things I live by. It's a principle of welcoming your struggles.
Okay.
You know, the biggest problem most people have is they don't think they should have any fucking problems. Right? Yeah, we've all had that experience where some shitty thing happens to us, and then 6 months or a year later we go, wow, that was a blessing in disguise. What I would encourage people to do is just shorten that time gap. And as soon as the bad thing happens, just right then and there go, you know what? This is painful, but it's growing pains. Something good always comes out of something bad. And it's only through struggle. It's like going in a gym and working out. only through that pain do you ever grow as a human being. And if you're not going to grow, you know the old saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. So welcome your struggles, people. As much pain as you're in now, it's your choice whether you turn it into suffering or not. And the formula for that is suffering is equal to pain times resistance. So stop resisting your struggles. Just know there's something on the other side of the darkness. You're not going through this for nothing.
Right.
And, and part of the magic of welcoming your struggles is when you start to embrace them, you stop fearing them. You stop building them up into these massive shadows that can have this control over you. You just accept it. You feel the pain and you grow from it and you move forward. And you do that with Tribe.
If there's anybody listening now that is struggling, going through a hard time, what will your message be to them right now?
I would have to say one of the things that I had a very hard time believing was that it was going to get better. Even up till, I'm going to be totally honest with you, 2 weeks ago when people kept telling me it's going to get better. And I would say absolutely it's not. My life is always going to be this awful. And I have to tell you, and this is something that everybody says, but it's going to get better. It might take a long time, but it's going to get better. And one of the biggest things that you have to do for yourself in the meantime is forgive yourself for all of the things that you judge yourself for the way that you've reacted to things, for the decisions that you've made, and be kind to yourself, because nobody else is going to do that for you but you. So I think once you're able to, like I spoke to earlier, forgive yourself for the things that have played out and to stop being so judgmental and so hard on yourself, because I believe we are. I believe we're extremely hard on ourselves. And I don't think that gets us anywhere. I know it hasn't for me personally. And I think forgiving myself is one of the best things that I've been able to do, because it's allowed me to let go of a lot of shame. And I don't believe that shame is a productive thing in your life. I don't think it serves a purpose. I think learning from things, absolutely. Shame, I don't. So be kind to yourself and forgive yourself for all of the things that you judge yourself for, because you're doing the very best you can. And you have to keep telling yourself that when things are as bad as they get, you're doing the very best you can with the resources that you have.
If you were to encounter someone who's listening to this and struggling and having some issues, mental health or, otherwise, if you encountered them, what would you say to them?
Well, this is it's a multifaceted answer. So
I would expect nothing less from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't. No, number one, don't give up, because it feels so devastating and it feels so overwhelming, especially when you start to realize like what's really going on, and it's a really hard time for you, for your family, but don't give up. It's integral to have an entire mental health plan. So if you're not seeing a mental health professional on a weekly, bi-weekly, however many times you can handle it, you got to get yourself into doing that, and connecting with others. That was the biggest piece for me. And I want to say you got to have a mental health plan in place. You got to be seeing a professional, because our peer support groups and the friendships that we come across through these programs, like the cohorts and Project Trauma Support and all the different peer support stuff, it's all informal. Like, we're not counselors. We don't have all the answers. So it's very important that people do have a mental health professional involved in their plan. But the number one thing that has really helped me a lot is the peer support. It's the connecting with others, because it validates you. I don't know if many people out there have been asked by some of their loved ones, like, we need the old you back.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost
absolutely
and I've always tried to say, like, be fair to yourself, because I used to be upset by that question. I used to think like, well, I can't really be the old me. But what I'd like people to understand is that they can actually be better than that. And that's by making connections with positive people and getting themselves into safe spaces like these peer support groups. And through networking and doing those types of things, that gets you into treatment programs like the cohort. So that's another step, is if you're struggling, reach out to either myself, reach out to you, who can get you in touch with me, or anybody else from the Project Trauma Support team. We have a website, so it's projecttraumasupport.com.
Yep.
And click on Contact Us and write us about our program, and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Another great resource, and I touched on this earlier, Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm dragging on here, but
no, drag away. It's awesome.
Families are essential. They're what a lot of us sort of use to hold us together. And they need help. They need help identifying what's going on. They need support of their own. In Ottawa, there's actually a group for spouses of people that have PTSD. So I can get you some info about that. I can't speak offhand about it because I don't know the name and stuff, but I'm aware that it's going on, and it's awesome. Sure. Awesome. And but back to the families. If you go to our projecttraumasupport.com website, click on the information for family section. There's a great little blurb there about what to expect from a family member. And then I've also put a link there to the Veterans Affairs website in the United States that explains how you as a family member or as a spouse or friend or what have you, how can you help someone that has PTSD. And there's really good information on that site that gives you sort of methodical approaches. And So don't give up, get help, get connected, and help your family. Don't forget your family. And I know that sounds like guilt. I'm not trying to guilt people into don't forget your family, but they are a huge piece, and they need some care as well. I'm really hoping that as time goes on, the legislation, provincially, federally, whatever, starts looking at helping families and marriages and that kind of stuff, because those are unfortunately a lot of them are falling victim to this epidemic. So,
Alan, before I let you go, if you could say something to, let's say we have a listener, a first responder or non-first responder going through some mental health issues, going through PTSD, what would you tell them? What would you say to them?
Oh, man.
They're in that dark place right now.
Here I am hesitating with a moment of fear and anxiety. What do you say?
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I think exactly that. Pick up that 1,000-pound phone and call somebody. Take the doorway through fear and go, even if it's your neighbor, and say, man, can I just talk to you for a moment? I think the biggest, most powerful thing that I could tell somebody that I did was admit to being afraid.
That's the strongest thing you can do.
Man, I honestly have not met one person in the past 4 years of going around and talking, interacting with other people. Not one person who has never, ever said that they've never been afraid, never, ever been scared. And I've never met one person who still does not have that one trauma, that one experience in their life that they will not talk about because of their fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that overcoming fear, right? Stepping through that doorway of fear to get where we want to be. I think that's the biggest and greatest thing. That self-admittance that I'm afraid, I'm fearful, and that having that willingness to keep walking forward, man.
You put it so well, that 1,000-pound phone, because that's for me, one of my triggers now is I hate to use the phone. So the phone, and but to make that first call, to call somebody because you're in that place and you just need someone to come and lift you out. And
that's it, man.
It is a 1,000-pound phone for sure.
Yeah, right.
Manuela, if you were to say something to somebody who's listening to this right now, who's going through trouble with mental health, doesn't quite know where to go, they're in that dark place, what would you say to them if you could say something?
I would say you are not alone. I would say there is hope. There is every reason for you to hope that things can get better, that everything that has caused you to stay isolated, the guilt, the shame, the fear, does not stand in good stead. It is not serving you well. And the first thing you need to do is reach out to somebody who is understanding and caring. And hopefully there will be someone near you that might be part of a support system, such as Project Trauma Support, or maybe a peer support person within their organization. sometimes we are our own worst enemies because the guilt and the shame will keep us isolated and keep us from reaching out for the help that we need. And you really need to critically examine those things that are barriers to you getting better and try to set them aside and step forth proudly, knowing that having PTSD is not something to be ashamed of. It really is something that almost is a badge of the experience that you've had, and it's a testimonial to the fact that, yes, you have done some work that is very, very risky and very dangerous and takes a lot of courage, and the only reason that you got injured is because you are human.
If you had a message, if you could say something to any listeners today that are struggling with mental health or PTSD in particular and not quite knowing how to get through it, if you could say something to them, what would you say?
Well, first is there's a lot of people that want to help those individuals in those situations and rely on that help and really leverage it, because there's a lot of people that care and really want to help put them in a better place. And second to that, of course, is where there are a lot of resources out there, and I know it takes time to navigate and find them all, but there are a lot of resources out there at no cost to help, and that's what they're all there for, and they should be accessed in their time of need. So, to spend a little bit of time, don't hesitate to reach out. You're absolutely not alone in this, and that's what Wounded Warriors Canada and others are here for, is to help make that transition and make that link. So, don't hesitate, and we're here for them and you, and that is the purpose of a charity like Wounded Warriors Canada. So please reach out. WoundedWarriors.ca, How We Help page has it all. Send an email, make a phone call, and if we can't put you in touch with something that we're funding, there's others out there that we can link you up with.
Wendy, so I'm going to hit you with this question now. So if there's someone listening who's struggling on any level, if they were sitting in front of you, what would you say to them?
First of all, take care of yourself from, if you need therapy, get help, call TEMA, whatever resources you have. If you're in serious trouble, get that. But I would also suggest that in my own life and so many others we watch, moments of, or even periods in our life that are really challenging and difficult and feel dark and heavy can be the growth plate for better things. And so I remind myself when I have a significant suffering CV, and again, it's not the quality of it, it's how we're feeling as we experience things. But it's possible to take your experience, first get well, take care of yourself, get through the mud, and then know that you have every new moment offers a new opportunity to think about it differently, to feel about it differently, and to frame it differently. And it's all possible because your mind is bigger and stronger and more creative than you can ever imagine. And don't always believe your thoughts, because that
for sure
tells us stuff that's not true.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, if we know that we have suffered a mental injury or emotional injury, why would we then rely on that injured part to give us good info?
Right.
We don't expect our broken arm to throw a ball.
Right.
And
in fact, you know that your broken arm will get better. We frame that fracture with a positive slant, knowing it will heal. There may be a scar, there may be aches and pains, but it will heal. And so this notion of impermanence can be a powerful one, trusting that nothing stays the same. That's not a guarantee that it's going to be easy and quick, but when you can trust the journey and trust, in mindfulness circles, we use the lotus flower. It's everywhere. And it's symbolic because in Buddhism, they say, no mud, no lotus. Lotus flowers do not bloom unless the roots are deep and dark and without sun. And it is in the mud that fertilizes the bloom.
Callie, I'm going to ask you now, if there's someone listening to this right now who is struggling, what would your message to them be?
Do not be quiet. Find a friend, talk to a coworker, talk to your employer. If you are struggling, do not do it alone, because you aren't alone. There are people around you who understand, And for those that may not understand, we will understand you here on Callie's Corner, but find someone at work, someone anywhere in your family or at work, and let them know that you're struggling, because there are resources that can help you. You do not have to do this alone.
So, Chris, if there's someone listening right now who may be struggling on any level, if they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would tell them is if they will reach out, just they'll be shocked at how many people are reaching back to help them. It floored me, because I was still nervous about admitting, but it's just crazy the amount of support and help, and especially if you love the job you're doing. Yeah, that's what I would tell them. If you love the job you're doing and you don't want this to change that, then you need to reach out and get help. I'm a perfect example. I was getting ready to quit the fire service after about 24 years. And because of reaching out and getting the help I needed, I was able to do another, 7 years. And,
wow.
And so I would just tell them just to reach out. I'd probably just beg them,
yeah.
Because it's a first step. It seems like a hard step, but then once you get to where I'm at now,
right,
I look back and think, what a simple step it really was, and all the support that's out there. That's why, like me and you both said, we need to make more of a presence of firefighter groups out there to help people that are dealing with it.
In closing, if you had a message for the first responders, in Canada, what would you say to them, the ones that are struggling or may struggle with PTSD and their families?
Well, I get a little emotional when I start talking about it, because I know what you're going through. And, I think I want people to know that whether you're in the fog right now or you seem to think that there isn't hope, there is hope, and there are people that are fighting for you. And I think beyond anything, I want people to know that they've got a voice and they have a champion, and we're doing everything we can. We want people to know that it's okay to say that you need help.
All right, brothers and sisters. There's no way you can feel alone after listening to that. You're not alone, even if it feels that way. I've felt that way. I have felt absolutely alone. And it's just not true. Do not trust your injured brain to feed you good info. It's just not logical. It just doesn't make sense. It's really strong, the feelings are, and it seems real when you're in the middle of it. But it is simply an injured body part giving you bad information that hasn't healed yet. There's lots of people who are willing to help you. So please make sure you reach out if you're struggling. And that concludes our second Tema Talk Summer of Support episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Some things that are going on. Always remember our Facebook page contest, trying to get up to 1,000 likes. If you already liked the Facebook page, please share it. That would be awesome. If you're listening and you haven't seen it, please check out Tema Talks Podcast on Facebook. And if you like what you see, give us a like and share it. Also, leave some feedback. Let me know if you want to see different things. All right, or if you like it or don't like it. I want to hear both sides. And when we get to 1,000 likes, we're going to take all 1,000 names and draw for 5 Tema swag bags. All right, so we'll get there slowly but surely. Thank you to everybody who continues to support the podcast on social media and by listening and subscribing to the podcast. Remember that Tema Talks, you can exclusively stream the podcast on the Mental Health News Radio Network, which is home to over 30 different mental health-oriented shows. Check them out. They're awesome. Really proud to be a part of that network. Otherwise, you can download the podcast from wherever you usually get your podcasts. If you found a place where you can't find it, let me know, and I'll make sure I get it up. But it should be there. Okay? A couple other events I want to tell you about. Obviously, the Help Our Heroes Golf Tournament on September 29th at Granite Springs Golf Club in Halifax, with proceeds going to the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. Check that out on Facebook. You can get all the information there. If you're able to attend, that would be great. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be there. and bringing some good friends with me. So it's going to be a great time. Also, in case you can be in the Antigonish area on October 27th, it's the 5th annual Helping the Helpers Awareness and Education Day, put on by good friend John Garth MacDonald, also the Nova Scotia ambassador for the Temaconter Memorial Trust. A full day of great speakers at St. Francis Xavier University Schwartz Auditorium. And you can check that out. They have a Facebook page, Helping the Helpers, and you'll be able to find out all the information about that. All right. So, the regular Tema Talks podcast will fire back up in September. Already have some great chats recorded. You're going to love it. Lots of guests are waiting, so we're going to finish out the year strong. Again, just a sincere thank you to everybody who has helped out and supported the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. All right, so until September, take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.